So now that I've had them for a few weeks, I think I'm finally ready to talk in a little bit more detail about these TRN BT20 Pro Bluetooth earpieces. So I got the pen out of the way, and we'll open these up. I want to talk about them in a few ways. I want to say just off the bat that I think these are probably a better bet for most people than the model I've talked about before, the BT20XSs. Those come in a zippered case, which is a little bit less convenient, and I've had some trouble with the sound in them distorting under certain circumstances, so I initially put up a whole bunch of very positive videos about those, and I've taken them down because I think they're probably not a good buy for most people right now. These, on the other hand, I have not been able to recreate that problem. I think it's fixed, or possibly I had a bad example of the others. That's also certainly a possibility. These support, well, I will give TRN a lot of credit for this stuff. These support 2 codecs. They support AAC and SBC, and I give TRN credit for printing it right on the back, so you know. So what does that mean? Well, these are the kinds of compression formats that your phone has to be able to use, assuming you're using them with a phone, in order to be able to use these. SBC is essentially everything can use SBC. It's usually fine for portable speakers and whatnot. AAC is a better quality codec, the best codec used by most Apple stuff, and Apple has a very high quality AAC compression algorithm that they use. So for Apple, and Apple doesn't support many of the other formats. So for Apple people, this is sufficient. For people on Android, you might want other codec availability. So these might not be the best choice if you're using an Android device. Android devices support AAC, and I have heard that the codecs are getting better, or that the encoding support has gotten better, but traditionally Android devices haven't sounded very, very good on AAC, whereas Apple devices have sounded good on AAC. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking at these. This case is, I think, more practical than the zippered one. You can open it with one hand. It has big wells. It's big, right? You can see it in my hands here. This is a chunky thing. It's for your bag. It's not for your pocket. But and then they fit in with the usual magnetic attachment, but there's plenty of room to hold. These are 0 reds, right? So some fairly large IEMs, no problem, right? All closes up. This is double layered. It's, there's not a lot of wiggle to it. This is pretty well done, and certainly for the price point, which is, in the $30 range. So very well done, TRN. This is good. It's big. Oh, and it's now got charge status indicators on the front, and then you can see the red light on here that these are charging as well. So that's all well done. For the sound quality, I'll talk about this a little bit more later on. Apart from the limited codec support, so AAC and SBC, there are no obvious problems with these, and don't expect magic, right? It's inexpensive Bluetooth earpieces. There's no magic here, but they work reasonably well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want to talk a little bit more about the physical design. First, I talked about the case. That's fine. Oh, USB-C on the back. There's no place to store the cable in, but we have USB-C cables stashed around, most of us now, so that's not really an issue. The earpieces themselves, I'll take them off, have removable arms. These ones actually come off a different set because there's a slight compatibility issue, which I talked about briefly in a previous video, so I won't go into that there. But these appear to be compatible back, and so you can order extra arms, because keep in mind a 0.78 millimeter connection, you shouldn't really be taking that on and off all the time. It's not designed for that, but this is much more robust. So this is a 2-pin style connector or something. And so you could have several arm pieces and switch your IEMs that way. So that would work pretty well. There's a single button on both of them. The button on both sides does the same thing. It lets you pause, it lets you start, it lets you invoke Siri or whatever, right? And that sort of thing. So it's totally adequate in practice. Apart from using it to pause or answer a phone call, I don't think anyone would ever use it. It will do a few things, like it'll turn them on and off, so you can leave the case at home and shut them off by holding down one of the buttons and turn them on the same way. That works. Major or minor complaint, whichever you think about it, about this setup is the same as with the XSs, and that is that there is no way to unpair them once they've connected to a device. So if they connect to my computer, I have to unpair them from the computer if they're connected to it before I can use them with my phone. What does that mean? If I'm using them with my computer during the day and pull them out of my bag on the commute home and want to listen to them, they're going to connect with the sleeping computer. And I won't be able to use them on the phone without pulling out the laptop and unpairing them and doing it back. Some other things have an unpairing function that forces them into pairing mode, but a lot of the cheaper Bluetooth stuff doesn't, and I find that irritating. What else do we have to talk? Battery life is excellent. They claim 50 hours of the case and these together. I think they claim 8 hours-ish for these. I certainly can use them all day at work, and they weren't great. Battery life is not a problem with these. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sound quality now. So, no magic. There are no extra chips. They're just using a Bluetooth chipset and driving these directly, presumably. One of these days I'll have one break and I will open it up and we'll see what's actually inside, but I'm presuming that's what's going on. The more expensive ones have a Bluetooth chipset, and then they have an amplifier chip of some sort, which gives you more output. So I would not expect these to get louder than the high 90s decibels, which is more than enough headroom for most people. And if you're actually listening at those levels, then your hearing is going to go before is the most serious problem. So they should be loud enough. But if you were using them with something that really isn't efficient, it could be a limitation. These are fairly efficient, so it's not a problem for me. Again, they're also mostly being used in the office. I don't notice a noise floor problem with them, but I'm older, I'm over 50, so I'm not hearing much above 15K. Maybe someone younger might hear something at 18 kilohertz, but I'm not hearing it anyway. And the sound quality is fine. It's exactly what you would expect from an AAC Bluetooth source. No better, no worse. I don't think the impedance is too high on these. These Truth Ear Zero Reds are sensitive to impedance, deliberately so. They come with a 10 ohm adapter that lets you ship them even bassier if you want to. They're pretty bassy to start with. I don't notice a shift in them using this as opposed to using known low impedance devices. So again, I don't have any impedance figures, but I don't think it's not very high, right? I suspect it's well below 2 ohms. Just guessing, but that seems likely. Latency, well, it's exactly what you expect from AAC earbuds. Don't be gaming with these. They're not going to be good for that source, but it's probably not going to be too bad in most other uses, at least in my experience. Sometimes something like a YouTube video will seem to get out of sync a bit, but I don't think they're any worse than any other Bluetooth device in that regard. So yeah, not for gaming, fine. They're also not going to be very good for video editing or anything like that, but no one who's taking that stuff seriously is going to be using Bluetooth devices anyway. I'll just look at my notes over here. Oh, I did want to talk a little bit about the microphone. It is fine, nothing special. It works perfectly well in a reasonably quiet room. It does have some noise filtering on it, so it should probably be okay in like an open plan office if you had to. If you record with it directly, it's pretty quiet, but in a program like Zoom or your phone app or anything like that that has automatic gain control in it, there's plenty of it will sound fine. So I don't think you'll have any problem with them for, sort of basic tasks. Now, again, in a very loud environment, on transit or something like that, I don't think these are going to be the best thing, but, again, they're not spending the kind of money, and the microphone positioning, which is presumably at the bottom here, I think. That's the light. So I assume that's the mic position down there, is not necessarily ideal either. So, I mean, they work as advertised. The case is fine. They drive IEMs perfectly adequately. There's nothing terribly special about them, but this basic design, which TRN has developed and seems to be mildly iterating, seems to be a good one. I guess there are a few caveats, right? Because you can shut them on and off, and because they have such long battery life, you can stick them in a pocket, but it's quite possible to unplug them while you're doing that. So you've got to be a little bit careful about that sort of thing. I think you could actually put them in a soft case, and you can hold down the button and they'll shut off. So you could put them in a soft case of some sort. I think you probably should put them in a soft case because they tend to get caught on things. But you could put them into a soft case, and now you would just have to hold down the button and turn them on that way, right? You can see the little light come on. Right, and then if I look at my computer over here, yeah, it's picked them up. So you could do that, and then you wouldn't have to carry this case at all. And given that their battery life is like 8 hours, that might be perfectly reasonable if you were taking them out somewhere. So that's a possible way of using them that avoids the case. Of course, you can't charge them without the case, so chances are you're going to take the case anyway, but still, that is an option you have. The other thing I keep in mind is these aren't the best for running or exercising or anything like that. Because this connection is floppy, right, which is not the case for most, around the ear sort of IEMs that are intended for sports use. It's not going to do what you want. So, yeah, to me, this is pretty well in the office set. They'd be fine on a plane or something like that, but I don't find them they're not my favorite for getting in and out of the subway and that sort of thing, where you take them in and out. I prefer something smaller and that just fits in the ear for that. Okay, so that's sort of a last caveat about how you might want to use something like this. So, of the TRN, inexpensive TRN Bluetooth earpieces that support AAC, which are these. So these are the BT20 XS Pro, BT20 Pro, or the other ones that I've used, which are the BT20 XS. I think these are the ones to get. I think this case is better. I think it's more practical. And as I said, I think the problem that I was experiencing with the others, I haven't with this. So I would say these would be the ones to get of those. I think at the price, you can hardly buy a cable for less, so it's a fairly reasonable purchase. Don't expect magic out of them. They're cheap and pretty good, but that's what they are. And coupled together with something like these Truth Ear Zero Reds, right? You've got a whole thing that in Canadian dollars comes to $30 for these, a little over $60 for these. So you can do the math, right? But you're still well under $100, and it'd be hard to beat the performance for that. And there are certainly $20 IEMs that you could get that would still beat the performance of almost any reasonably inexpensive true wireless set of earphones you might get for the $50 in total that you'd spend for the whole lot. So I think they're a pretty good option for a lot of people, but your mileage may vary. Thanks for watching.